Hello and welcome to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast. My name is Mahou Shoujo M from Daily Kodocha, and I am joined by my co-host.
That Kodocha Girl or TKG or Ari, whatever you'd like to call me.
We are super excited. It's just the two of us today, and we are gonna do an episode that we've talked about doing like since the beginning of the podcast, but hadn't really gotten around to doing yet, which is we're gonna talk about the music of Kodocha.
I've been really excited to talk about this because I last week I was like, all right, I'm gonna just really jump into this, and I've been looking at different places online about information about the music, the soundtracks, the openings, the endings, and I've found a lot of cool stuff I can't wait to share today.
Don't get me wrong, like I'm happy to talk about this always, but I'm really excited to be talking about this, particularly with Ari, who is also a musician. And every time we talk about the Kodocha music, I feel like you have like a musician's frame of mind around it, and so you're able to pull out different things that like I don't necessarily hear. And so I'm looking forward to like that part of the conversation as well, because I think it's you've got a good perspective there. Like I did band, but like I love how you can know it. Like when we talked about things before, you'll be like, oh, they use this instrument in this song and like this instrument and this instrumental, and it kind of ties together in this way. And I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. So
Thank you. All right, so our first topic of discussion today will be about the physical Kodocha soundtracks.
yes. We'll link it in the description box, but I did a YouTube video on my own channel, kind of walking you through how to identify if a soundtrack is a bootleg or if it's authentic. Because your girl bought not one, not two, but three bootleg copies of the Kodocha soundtracks without realizing it. So,
And
learn from my mistake.
it's really easy to miss too because they look so authentic. Like even holding it in person, because I have volume one, volume three, and the best of soundtrack, which we'll talk a little bit about soon. But
Mhm.
my volume three is bootleg, but you would not be able to tell looking at it. Like
No,
it's
like
got full
they're
booklet.
oh yeah, they've got the tells are really pretty subtle, and honestly and again too, like I want everybody to know, like these CDs, these bootlegs are like the CDs themselves are like screen printed and like they look really nice, and it's the things that the kind of tells are really very subtle. And I was really surprised too because the kind of bootleg industry around anime CDs kind of a quick but limited space of time because basically before a lot of international copyright laws came to pass, which was kind of around 2002. So a lot of series that are older than 2002, like Kodocha, are kind of the victim of having quite a lot of bootlegs out there from that. Because I'd bought some bootleg DVDs of different series when I was in middle school without meaning to, but they were like you could tell like they looked very much like they were bootlegs. These CDs, I mean, they look good. You'd never know if you weren't looking for it. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
wanna get into it. So if you are looking to buy a Kodocha soundtrack or any other anime soundtrack, if the publisher is Ever Anime, Hoson Records, Son Mei Records, Top Circle, or Smile Face International, that's just a bootleg. Those are bootleg companies, every single one of them. So make sure that when you're looking, it should be probably Sony Records. That's who did the Kodocha soundtracks. And so the other thing you can do is check the serial number, which you should be able to see on the case in any pictures if you're buying online. And it should start with SRCL as if it's Sony Records. If it's Ever Anime or one of the other ones, the serial number will be typically two characters, a dash, and then three characters, but it should be an 8 character serial number. So keep that in
That's
mind as well.
incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a again, learn from my errors. I spent so much money on these bootlegs. That's the part that really gets me. And I would say also like in terms of like the CD quality again of these bootlegs, the sound quality is great. Like, I've done perfect exact audio copy rips of FLAC files for all of the soundtracks, and you really can't hear a discernible difference between bootlegged or not. The thing that gets me and why I always like caution people when they're buying anime CDs online is mostly because these bootlegs will cost you just as much, if not more, than a real copy. And I think that that's kind of crummy. So don't overpay for it. Like if you just want a copy to listen to enjoy, then by all means, live your best life. Just don't spend like 45 bucks on it. It's not worth it.
Oh yeah, it's like I was telling Em earlier. I've been trying to get my hands on volume two, but I keep seeing listings for it like $40 and over, and I
Mm.
just, I'm not willing to pay that much for that, and especially not a bootleg. So I'm really thankful that you put out that video because I actually had no idea about these
Oh,
bootlegs before that.
me neither. It was, I feel like we were a little too young, I think, at the time, because I've heard from some older Kodocha fans, either just elder millennials or some kind of young Gen Xers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, like bootlegged anime CDs were very common at cons at the time. Like that was it was really common. You'll still see them in like half price books and things like that." I just had no idea. I didn't know that that was a thing. And I guess like I thought if like it was a bootleg CD, like it would look less good if that makes sense.
Right.
But
Yeah.
again, like they look great, but you can watch my video if you're curious about some of the more specifics.
Go check it out.
Thanks. Yes, do that.
Let's talk about the best of, the mystery of the best of
Oh, the mystery of
soundtrack.
the best of. Yeah, gotta shout out Annabelle, Fridge Feet for doing some digging on this particular topic.
So basically, we don't know whether or not the best of soundtrack is actually real. Like, is it just like a fan-made compilation? What is it? There's like no information about it online.
Well, I know, and I'm kind of curious because you actually have a physical copy of the best of. What songs are on it?
Okay, so I'm looking at my physical copy, and like we talked about, there's just something a little off about the artwork, especially with
Mm-hmm.
Akito's eye. Really weird.
Mm-hmm.
So this compilation, it mainly has the music that has like lyrics. It has the opening themes, the ending themes, Goodbye Love, Vitamin Love, Babbitt's Counting Song, uh,
Oh,
Always Be With You. There's like a little Akito song that he does called Bura Bura.
that's
Um,
on the second soundtrack. Yeah.
mhm. There's three versions of that on this.
There's three
Um,
versions of it on the second soundtrack as well, on volume two.
okay. And then they have karaoke versions of, let's see, it looks like Panic,
Mm-hmm.
Daijobu, and Love Me Deeper. They have karaoke versions for. And
Hmm.
they also have different versions of Always Be With You. Or I'm sorry. Well, they have that too, but they also have different versions of Panic. There's I don't know what this means. 9 4 6 7 5 mix and the dance mix.
Oh, very exciting. Well, that's what I find really interesting is that almost all of those songs are just songs that are on any of the other released soundtracks, but the karaoke versions of the ending themes are not. But there are karaoke versions of different songs. Like there's a karaoke version of Goodbye Love on the first soundtrack. There's a karaoke version of Vitamin Love on the second soundtrack. And there's no karaoke versions on volume three, it looks like. So that is interesting. I wonder where they got those.
Hmm.
So SM Records, Sonmei Records is a bootleg company, and so far nobody seems to have found a best of soundtrack that was made by anybody else. It's I'm kind of the opinion that the best of is doesn't have an authentic version. But that's just me. We can I'm happy to be wrong if we find information that proves it otherwise, but I
Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence that points to it being legit, so, but
eh.
I'd be happy to know if anybody has more information about this, the comment, or maybe
Yeah,
even
definitely.
if you're interested enough, maybe, as a collective effort for the Kodocha fandom, maybe dig for information on Internet Archive and other random places on the web that you could find
Yeah.
information like this.
Truly. It's one of the like lots of inspiration for like wanting to be more proficient at like reading and speaking Japanese, but questions like this that, you and I have a harder time finding the answer to because they might not be out there in English, want to solve some of these mysteries.
All right.
Another
Did you want
thing,
to? Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say generally about the physicals in general. If I had to pick between the three of them, because like I don't know about you, but I love listening to albums kind of just like when I was a young person, I used to shuffle my CDs and I liked the kind of randomness of kind of shuffling up songs. But as I have grown older, I like to listen to things more sequentially now. And I think for me, one of the best soundtrack for just like beginning to end, just like a good arc of a listen is probably the first one, volume one,
Hmm.
in my opinion, because I feel like the second and the third have just too many things that like kind of interrupt you, if that makes sense. Like that interrupt the flow of like listening to the instrumentals from the TV show.
Yeah, because there's like some spoken word things on them, aren't there?
Yeah. I did not need all three versions of Bura Bura Seiji no Uta from Akito. It's a little boring to listen to. It's a skip for
Yeah,
me.
same. I'm not really a fan of any of
Me
those
either.
versions. Yeah, definitely a skip for me too. But I agree. I think the first soundtrack's probably the best from beginning to end. And
Hmm.
it has the majority of my favorite tracks. But then my second favorite, and it'd probably be pretty close, would be the third soundtrack.
Mm.
That has a lot of my favorite songs on it. But as a
Hmm.
whole, it definitely doesn't flow as well as the first one.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there because yeah, again, volume three has songs that I really like, but honestly, the between like the accounting song, which we already all know how I feel about it, and then just like, this is my unpopular opinion, but I don't need every single version of Always Be With You personally.
I
But
feel the same way actually. Like
I'm shocked. I thought you're an Always Be With You apologist.
well, I there's one version that I always listen to, which I actually made note
Mhm.
of it here, is I prefer the it's the version that plays during the hug scene. Um
Yes, 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 yes.
but the rest of them, I mean they're fine. Like I don't think they're bad. They're just like I don't really listen to them at all. Like I listen to I guess it's called the up-tempo version. I listen to
Yeah.
that one all the time, but then the other ones are just like, it's all right.
Yeah, the Memory of 76 version and then the slow version.
Hmm.
And not my favorite. I think the uptempo one is probably the best also. But so what other likes, dislikes you have about the physicals?
I feel like I've said everything I wanted to about the
Mm,
soundtracks in general, actually. Favorites and what I liked about what they did and whatnot.
that's definitely fair. I think my only other like thing I would say is that on the cover of volume three, I love this artwork, but no offense to Mayu and to Momi, I don't really know why they get to be on the cover when they are in exactly two episodes in a 102 episode series.
I always
Um,
thought their inclusion in the anime, I mean, they're fine. And yeah, no
yeah.
offense to them, but like, there's so much like promo art and they're
Yeah.
on the cover of like everything. And it's like, we never really, and I think the second time we see them, it's
Yeah,
not even a real thing. It's like a dream,
it's the
basically.
it's the like 1 2 3, it's the Footloose Town jazz filler episode. I can't remember what it's called. Like 3 2 1 sing, I think.
Something like that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Their first episode is super cute, and again, they're great, adorable characters, and I would have loved it honestly if they'd been included more. I think that could have been really fun, but they kind of didn't, and it's so strange to me that they are put in a place of like series regular status. Um,
Yeah. And honestly, like I always found it funny, like Mayu. was always like jealous of Sana, but like
Mm,
she's super oblivious to it. And that could have been a fun dynamic to work into the
yeah,
show and make the scenes when like Sana's doing her acting stuff more humorous, I think, instead of
I
having Sanjiro all the
agree.
time.
Aside from like having Zenjiro all the time, or like I feel like with Kadocha and Sana's acting scenes, it's always we've got either like a Zenjiro subplot, which okay, or it's about like Sana being blacklisted by an agent again, and it's like, or you designed these two adorable characters and then we never see them.
Their character designs are perfect for that show, and it's
Hmm.
yeah, totally a waste.
Totally a waste. So I don't love them being on the front of the soundtrack as if they are main characters. Really, I just want this volume 3 to just have Tsuyoshi's face on it. Um, I think that's the only scenario that I would be truly okay with at this stage. Where is the respect for my boy?
Or there's the possibility that like they were trying to be like meta with it and like
Mm,
having them on the cover of the soundtrack and being like, oh, this is like them doing the music for Kodocha. I don't
which
know.
you want to know something funny though? But volume
What's
3 is
that?
not even the song that Vitamin Love is on.
Oh yeah, it's
Like
not.
it's on
It's two,
volume
isn't it?
2. Yeah, it's on volume 2. So it's like like it I don't know. To be a fly on the
I
wall of
think
a boardroom somewhere every time.
I think their song from that 321 episode's on it though. So
Oh, that's the isn't it the that one.
I love that one actually.
Is it called Let's Sing? Did I make that up?
Um,
Oof.
I don't know. I
That's
can't
okay.
remember.
No worries, no worries. I was just curious. Anyway, yeah, that's probably all I've got to say on the physicals too. Just complaining about Tomomi and Mayu. Sorry, ladies.
They don't deserve it. They
I
they they
don't.
deserved better for sure, but oh
They
well.
really do.
At least we have promo art of them.
Yeah, it is great. I love this artwork of them too. Because and I also think it's very fun that particularly with the Tomomi Mayu Sana kind of three combo, they they never put Sana in the middle. Like they always kind of put Mayu in the middle. Because, she's kind of like would be perhaps with her energy the de facto like leader. So to
Hmm.
speak. And yet, in this particular artwork on the cover of Volume 3, I just think that Sana really steals the show. My eye is always drawn toward her.
She does. I like the outfits they're wearing too.
They're cute. They're very fun. Anyway,
Right. Yep.
yeah, let's talk opening themes.
All right. Okay,
Woof.
so the first opening theme. So when Kodocha was originally released in the Western world, we didn't actually get the true first opening, 19 o'clock news. We got throughout the entire series, or at least for season one, we got
Ultra
Ultra Relax.
Relax. Yeah.
Mhm.
By
Which is a shame,
Tomoe
but
Shinohara.
yes, which she's got such a vibrant personality. I've
Oh my
gone
gosh,
on
yes.
YouTube and watched like interviews and behind the scenes stuff with her, and she's just like, I don't mean this as an insult. I'm just comparing the energy because, there's like memes about this person in the United States, but she's almost got like early JoJo Siwa vibes.
Okay. Yeah, I can kind of see it. That is so funny though. That's apt. And I did think it's funny too that they even included her in, I think, the first episode of season 2 of Kodocha.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that was a nice little Easter egg there. And she's actually in the opening too at the very end when there's like that giant statue that falls down before
yeah,
it's I think it's her and then it's Sana. I can't remember which one falls first, but I know
I
she's
can't
one of
remember
them.
either. Yeah, she is definitely one of them. And the thing that I find so interesting about the character design that they did for her in the show is that like it's proportioned entirely differently from all of the other characters. So she's
Hmm.
got kind of like a larger head and kind of body, than the other characters, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of wondered if why, but
Maybe
that
it's
was
because
something
of
I
her big
noticed.
personality. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, they just couldn't contain her to a normal
I've noticed
anime body.
they I've noticed they do that sometimes if they have like celebrity cameos in that show. Like Zenjiro's got exaggerated teeth.
Hmm.
And I think it was in the very first episode of Kodocha, one of
Oh, the
the
guy from Tokyo. Yeah,
yeah, and he's got like that ultra 90s haircut.
he sure does. And that's actually probably not a bad segue into the whole shenanigan with the song 19 O'Clock News by Tokyo, which was the original season one opening theme, was basically they were under a is Johnny Kitagawa was the label owner. Producer Johnny and Associates
Oh yeah.
was the name of the label. And so basically they were kind of notorious for being like very hyper protective over the songs that their bands created and sang. So with a lot of licensing, particularly in the West, the licenses would just run out on these songs and they would basically refuse to re-up them. Or refuse to grant one in the first place, which is what happened with the song 19 O'Clock News. So if you're an Inuyasha fan, for example, you'll notice that the first season opening theme Change the World, which is by a band called V6. They are also another band on the Johnny and Associates label. And that song has been removed as the opening theme on Hulu and Crunchyroll and other places that you watch Inuyasha.
Oh
It's
my
only on the
gosh.
DVDs. Yeah.
Yes, that's funny you say that because a couple of years ago, my husband and I were watching Inuyasha, and that's like one of his favorite anime, and he was showing it to me for
Hmm.
the first time, and he only had the first two seasons. And then we get on Hulu, and like all of a sudden, it's the opening
It's just
plays,
yeah. And it's
and
just the instrumental. Yeah.
and my husband's like, "What is this crap?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what
I
I don't know what
I
happened here."
I had a similar reaction. I happened to have the first season of Inuyasha on DVD. And so my poor husband, I was like, nope, I'm like, I don't care that the quality is like not as high as it would be to stream it. Like, forget it. Like, sit down. I can only watch this with the correct opening theme because Change
I
the
don't
World is
blame
a bop
you.
and a very good song. So,
Hmm.
but yes, all of that was basically because of this one guy. And I actually love Discotech basically said the quiet part out loud. So when Discotech did the Blu-ray release of Kodocha in 2021, whenever that happened,
2021, I think.
2021, I think, yeah. And they had restored 19 o'clock news as the opening theme, and everybody said, "But how did you do it?" And I think there's actually literally a tweet where Justin Savakis says, like, well, Johnny Kitagawa died, so once that guy was out of the picture, we were able to get the rights to the songs all of a sudden. Strange how that happened. Um,
Uh,
so there you go. A little fun fact about the openings of Kodocha. So if you're a Funimation longtime watcher, sorry, Ultra Relax is not the actual season one opening theme of Kodocha.
and
I was
honestly, it's a
I was
shame.
pissed. I was mad. I remember when because I had watched the series on YouTube before I had bought my first DVDs. So when I popped it in and 19 o'clock news was very absent, I was pretty upset.
Yeah, I actually, and I've told this story on the podcast before about I found Kodocha because the opening came up on recommended. I was like, this looks like a interesting show. And then I started out watching the dub and I was like, where is that opening that I loved so dearly? It's not there. Um, but yeah, I'm really glad that it was able to be included in the new releases. Because it's definitely my favorite opening. You know,
Hmm.
I think that's an unpopular opinion. People seem to prefer Ultra Relax because you know it's got that zany, upbeat vibe, and you've got the cute little
Hmm.
Macarena dance. But I just always thought 7 o'clock news was more of a vibe. It,
Ooh.
it I feel like not only the music but the you know what's going on in the opening. It's I don't know, to me it feels like it captures the vibe of Kodocha more than Ultra Relax. I feel like Ultra Relax just is like, oh, here is this silly little shoujo, but
Hmm.
you can't really infer like what it's about. Like you think it's just maybe something like Doraemon or
Mm.
like a cartoon more for kids. But with the
Hmm.
first opening, I always thought like I was always intrigued by that. I was like, what? Like why is this boy looking so sullen and why is this girl chasing him around with the camera? Like it made
Hmm.
me want to watch Kodocha, but Ultra Relax just is it doesn't get me hyped for watching the
Hmm.
show as much as 19 o'clock news does.
Yeah, strong agree. 19 o'clock news is my ride or die. Like I love that song. I love that opening. I think it's the animation is fantastic. I think it really nails the kind of tone, I think, for season one. But season one, I mean, we've kind of talked about this before in terms of like kind of does a really good job of managing the energy of the show and kind of hitting that balance of comedy and drama. And I
Hmm.
think the song is really good and indicative of that. Now, you did say 7 o'clock news at one point, and I rant.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I whatever fan, because it had to have been a fan who labeled the song 19 o'clock news as 7 o'clock news. I'm not mad. I just want to talk because 24-hour clocks are used in a lot of the world and even in lots of parts of America. It's not that unusual. But the song is called 19 o'clock news. Like there's the only like that's like literally if you it spells it says like 19 the numbers like not even they didn't even do the like yeah jukyuji no nyuzu yeah so that's how you would say 19 but they literally put the numbers 1 and 9 so whatever fan made it 7 o'clock news put it on animelyrics.com or whatever was like people don't have 24-hour clocks or know what that is. I'm going to help. And then they didn't. They made it worse. And now it's 2024. It's been like 20 years, and I'm still sitting around here getting kind of irritated when people say 7 o'clock news for no reason. The end.
Meanwhile, I just use it interchangeably. I don't
I
really think
know.
about it.
It
Like
it's
I
not important. It is like it is one of those it's one of those like things. I've almost had this rant on Twitter also because I don't know why it makes me so insane. Probably because I have kind of a bit of particular about like the translation things. But
yeah,
like,
because when things get translated, sometimes it loses its meaning or it might be
yeah,
disrespectful to the source material.
yeah, it's also just like I don't know. It feels like a very American thing to have been done because again, a lot of the world uses a 24-hour clock. It's not unusual. It's just not something that we do as commonly in the US. So just feels like and I'm also I think probably a little overly sensitive to when things try like when we get these exports from Japan and people here try to Americanize them or dumb them down or translate them in a way that they think that Americans will better understand, which I don't think is fair a lot of the times. Um,
Yeah,
you
I've
know.
yeah, there's a lot of things that like being more active in the anime community in general and just like trying to watch new series. Like there was something because I've been watching Dragon Ball Z with my husband. He's been begging me to
Mm,
watch it with him. And
hmm.
it's definitely not my favorite show. It's really not my cup of tea to be honest, but it's
Mm,
enjoyable for what it is. And I know it's a classic and you know I recognize its impact.
mm,
Um but there was something about it was an episode that we saw, and my husband was like, "Oh, they cut all this from when it was on Toonami back in the day. Like this, I don't even
hmm.
remember this." And it's like, what? Like that kind of adds to the whole like character arc or whatever's going on in
Hmm.
this scene. And it's yeah, I find it a bit disrespectful. And I just feel like now, like looking back, like I don't think it was ever justified. Like maybe some of if there was like swearing, you know, maybe cutting that or
Hmm.
changing that, you know, since it was on Cartoon Network. But like other things that, you know, added to it or was intentionally put in there by the creators, I just yeah, I just feel like it's a smack in the face to the artists that worked on the projects.
Oh, absolutely. And I think too, like we have this conversation, I think, a lot when talking about just like whether something is appropriate for children, which in particularly with a lot of anime imports, they wanted to repackage them for kids. See what I did there? For kids entertainment. Um
They're the worst.
I know they are absolutely the worst offenders. And like I think, I will never forget one of the execs went on record saying when they originally brought over Tokyo Mew Mew, they were going to call, I mean, they called it Mew Mew Power in the end, and kind of the locale was not as big of a deal, but they originally wanted to bill it as Hollywood Mew Mew.
What?
And one of the, I'm not joking, this is real. That was
Lord.
originally Hollywood Mew Mew, and one of the execs went on record being like, by the time we're done with it, the kids won't even know it takes place in Japan. Which, first of all, what? And second of all, I
Jeez.
think like of all of the places in these United States to try to reset Tokyo Mew Mew, LA? Are you serious? With all them buildings. I
Oh my
think they could
God.
have done a better job making it a New York, New Jersey.
You know, Mew Mew Power is terrible when, like, even when I discovered it as a 13-year-old, I refused to watch it. And, like, that was pretty much
Mm.
all I watched most back then and didn't really care much was dubs. Like, it's all about
It
the
was a
Sailor Moon dub, but, like, yeah,
mm,
that was abysmal. I
it
couldn't
was
watch the dub for that at all.
that was the first show I watched where I like knew what anime was, knew that this was a dub, and knew that changes were being made. And there was a site at the time, the Cafe Mew Mew forums, where they would literally week to week go through and talk about the things that were changed from episode to episode, which was super helpful. And I think that's probably also I learned early and got kind of sensitive about those changes early, probably because of shows like Tokyo Mew Mew. But like to me, it starts with something as simple as making something that clearly says and sings 19 o'clock news, 7 o'clock news. I'm like, it seems so innocuous, but it's just, to me, I'm like, it's a slippery slope. So I know
Yeah.
it's not that serious. It's just a dumb thing that I get kind of stuck on.
No, I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. It's a slippery slope. It can, if you just kind of let it go, it just these things. Although I think as a community we're past that
Oh,
now,
and
like
thank
with
God.
new dubs and
Yes.
things coming out. I just feel like it's gotten a lot better. Like people respect the culture more. Like we don't have jelly donuts or
Oh,
or
rest in
making
peace.
making a lesbian couple into cousins. We don't have that anymore. Thank
I don't
God.
want to talk about it. I'm like justice for Haruka and Michiru. Um,
Yeah, it's so cringe that they changed that. Like,
it's like you made it worse actually. You just made it incest, but pop off, I guess. Like,
well, I will say this, when I was a
oh,
kid and I saw that, I didn't really put two and two together.
did you
So,
not? Gosh,
no,
maybe
I was like
uh,
5 though. I was really
that's fair.
young.
I had like watched a little of Sailor Moon here and there when it was on when I was really little, but like I didn't have access to it until I started getting like VHS tapes from like CD Exchange and stuff like that from
Mhm.
the Pioneer release. And at I guess like 10, 11, I was like, math ain't mathin'. Something else is going on here.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm
see
like,
it now because
okay.
I
No, I'm just being silly. Ignore me. Happy Pride. This is coming out in June.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it made me think of it. There was this compilation on YouTube a while back that was like it was just called Cousins in quotation marks. And it's like, yeah, I see it
God.
now as an adult.
It's just like yeah, it's just beyond like not super subtle. Especially like in the movies, I feel like they could probably have skirted around it more. There's not as much stuff, but like in some of the TV show things with them living together, it's just like, ah yes, a healthy same-sex relationship. It's fine, I'm fine. Anyway,
Better days have arrived when it
better
comes to
days
that
have
stuff. So,
arrived. I'm so thankful. It's so, yeah, I'm so glad because there are so many things that I think 15 plus years ago that would have been really kind of butchered, I think. So it's very heartening to see that, they're leaving a lot more of that stuff alone than they used to.
Yeah. And
So,
I definitely think it's a win for representation because like
mm,
that's why like other than just it being, the intent of the creator, just having that erasure is offensive to, the demographic of
mhm.
people who watch that. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
No, I think you are absolutely right. I don't like when people assume, or especially like people wearing suits in a boardroom somewhere make a lot of assumptions about their audience or
Yeah.
like their people who are buying their product. Just sorry, man, y'all need better market research then. And I guess they've gotten it because things have changed. So,
Actually, and this will tie it back to Kodocha actually. And
hold on.
I was watching I've been watching The Mansion of Water Arc again.
Mm,
Pray for me.
rip.
Uh, and there was this one scene, I totally missed this the first time, or actually I've watched it multiple times. I can't believe I just noticed it now. There's this scene, it's when those three girls are introduced that attack
Mm,
Sana for
hmm.
being around Naozumi, and they hand her a magazine with like like scandals and gossip and stuff inside of it. And there's this
Mm,
one article about Zenjiro meeting up with a transgender person, and I'm thinking, I bet if this was in the English dub, like if they dubbed the whole series, like they would not have even mentioned that. Like that they would have just said it was, oh, he was seen with some strange woman or some mystery woman or something.
hmm.
And then I was thinking, yeah, back then they definitely would have cut that part out.
Oh yeah, in 2006, the acknowledgement of trans individuals, absolutely not. They wouldn't have touched it. Is it, I don't know, I would presume that, given the decade that Kodocha came out in Japan also, that was probably meant to be the butt of a joke, which also not it, but
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. Like I said,
yeah.
have you noticed that one before?
I can't remember. I would need to watch through that again. When did season two come out? Was like last about a year ago now. Wow. And so that's when I was kind of watching these episodes last. It's been about a year. So I don't quite remember that arc as well. But I want to do a rewatch of the whole series this summer. So
I've got that on my schedule too because
mm.
I recently did a poll asking my Twitter and YouTube community, which it's funny because the Twitter community picked one option over another and the YouTube was the opposite. So it's like, what do I do?
Naturally, great. Love that.
But I was asking, which video would you like me to do? I'm working on part 4 of my Sana and Akito video series, and I want to do a review of Kodocha season 1. Since I did a review for season 2, and I just want to have a review of season 1 just for continuity, and also, if somebody like stumbles upon my channel and they're like, "What's Kodocha?" They can
Hmm.
watch that video and see if it's a show for them. But
Mm.
yeah, it'll be nice. We can talk about maybe weird things that pop up that we never noticed before, like the Zenchiro magazine thing.
Oh, or like I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago with the like Babbitt saying bitch and stuff. Like I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. No matter how many times I rewatch it, like I always notice something new.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
did you? We got so off topic this
we
time.
sure did. That never happens to us. What are you talking about? Um,
Okay, do you
so
want to talk
ending
about
and
the ending
ending
themes?
themes. Yeah, yeah. I love it. So, what's your favorite ending theme?
Oh, this was really hard for me to choose. And I
Mm-hmm.
think my answer might surprise you,
Lay it on
but
me.
Love Me Deeper is my
Okay.
favorite.
Love Me Deeper is a close second for me. I had to pick Panic because I just really love that song. But Love Me Deeper, like it's such a close second. Like it's so close. But I think the important thing is that we can both agree that Daijobu is a song that exists.
Yeah, I hate to say that because it's not bad, but I don't think it works as an ending theme, if that makes sense. Like,
I agree. I almost feel like maybe it'd have been a better opening theme.
actually, yeah, I think that would have been good. Like maybe have an additional opening, maybe have that
Yeah.
as the ending or the opening theme of the end of the series.
Yeah, that could be I'm almost like, oh, I kind of want to play around with that now. 'Cause yeah, it's so jarring. Mostly like the shifts into panic and the shifts into love me deeper at like a Kodocha cliffhanger like are done so well.
Mhm.
Those songs both like ramp into the ending theme like super nicely. Daijobu is always like you're being punched in the face. It's so aggressive and it just doesn't totally mesh with a lot of those end moments. Not to mention the phrase Daijobu means like
It's
I'm
okay.
okay, like it's okay, I'm okay kind of thing. And so I just like I have this mental image right now of Sana like shaking Takeshi Gojo's dead body on the ground while
Oh my
Daishobu plays in the
gosh.
background. And it's like, yeah, we're okay. Are
And
we?
I feel like that whole arc, right, is like
Yes.
the whole like having Daijobu, like I think it comes in around that time, like
It
they
does. It
switch
does.
over, and it's like not that I'm trying to make the Takeshi Gojo arcs like better. I don't think they could ever
No.
be improved upon, but if Panic was there instead, then maybe it would have been very slightly more bearable. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just it's possible, you know? I also too like especially with some of the early episodes of season 2 where Daijobu is still the ending theme, like I don't know, like something horrible happens to like Sana and Akito or like, the phone call or like something like very dramatic and then it's just like the do and I'm like I'm just like I hate this so much. It is not
Yeah,
Daijobu. Everything is not
I'm with you
Daijobu.
there. And I'm so glad you feel
Oof.
the same way because like
Oh my god,
sometimes I
yes.
felt like I was the only one who didn't really like that.
No.
But
You and me, baby.
but
Us
yeah,
against the world.
yes. The two of the biggest Kodocha super fans unite.
Yes. We don't like this one song because we don't like how it's incorporated mostly.
I think the reason I picked Love Me Deeper over Panic, because it was very hard for me to choose between them,
Mhm.
was while I think that Panic it does a better job at building that suspense, I think Love Me Deeper, to me, it's just a better song. I like the sound of it more
Mm,
than Panic.
interesting.
Um, I listen to it more than the other songs too, actually. Like, I'd say out of all those opening and ending themes, Love Me Deeper is probably my second most listened to Kadocha song other than 19 O'Clock News.
Definitely fair. Love Me Deeper is like a really good song. I think I might be flip-flopped with you. I do tend to listen to Panic more. But I think what I think is special about both of them and what really works is I feel like Panic feels a little bit less serious, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit of a lighter song. And
Hmm.
I think that kind of works pretty well with a lot of the elementary school arc stuff. Whereas like Love Me Deeper is, and especially too, if like you look up the lyrics, like it is a very like kind of intense song, which
Hmm.
I think because we are now at like a more serious point in the story and like in Sana and Akito's relationship, it really fits really well there. So I think they both serve good purposes for where they're placed in the show. Like if you flipped them, like if Love Me Deeper was the ending theme for a lot of season 1, I think it would feel really odd.
I agree.
And same
Yeah.
thing with Panic in season 2.
Yeah. And then we just have their weird little sister in the middle. Their Jobu.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of
Um,
interesting too because so often, like I can't think of another series that does that where there's 3 ending themes but 2 opening themes. Normally it would be like kind of a 1-to-1 ratio of new
mhm.
songs. So I wonder what that's about.
Yeah, I always found that odd too. Like I feel like if anything, it should have been three openings and two endings,
Mhm.
but I mean, I don't know. I didn't
Oh,
make the
really?
decision. Yeah.
I've only ever seen it where like when there's a new opening, there's a new ending. Like so they kind of go together in pairs. I've never seen it not that way outside of Kodocha that I can think of.
Yeah, I know I listened to a lot of Naruto music and I know they were kind of weird about their opening and endings. Like they didn't really match
Hmm,
up. And I think
interesting.
that they had a lot of endings in Naruto, both series. Like
Hmm.
they have more endings, I think, than openings, and it's really odd. But
Huh.
that was like my introduction to anime. So
Hmm.
I feel like everything after I just expect more endings than openings, but I still think like it should be the other way around.
Huh. Very interesting. Because yeah, I'm thinking about it, and like it's like most of my go-to series or series that I really love. It's one to one. So, but I also don't watch as much shonen, which if it sounds like that's something that's more common there, maybe than in other shoujo. Certainly in like Magical Girl, series that I've watched. Doesn't really matter. It's just interesting. So, huh.
I did want to mention before we moved on that did you know that Daijobu was actually sung by Babbitt's Japanese voice actress?
I did not. Good for her. I have no beef with her, though I do not care for her character or her song.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
booked and blessed, girl. Good for you. Um,
All
that is a
right.
fun fact. Well done. Okay, is it time
Did
to
you
get
have,
into? Oh, what?
yeah, unless you had anything else you wanted to add for the ending
Nah,
themes.
not on ending themes. Let's talk about the instrumentals.
Oh my gosh, this is the moment I've been waiting for.
Honestly, same. I love them so much.
It's okay. So I wanted to mention before we jump straight into the instrumentals,
Mm.
we talked a little bit about Always Be With You. Now the song is actually all the versions of the song with the vocals is actually sung by Mayu's Japanese voice actress, which I didn't know. I thought that was really neat.
Oh, that is interesting.
And she also does the voice, and I want to give a shout out to our friend Retro Nova here because I know these are two things that he enjoys. Um, so I found out that she also does the voice of Nurse Angel Ririka and Tikal from Sonic Adventure, which was a big part of my childhood. And I thought that was really interesting because, you know, I grew up playing Sonic Adventure, and I know I didn't play it in Japanese, but I
Hmm.
liked that little tie there from
Yeah.
that game that like was a big influence on me growing up to Kodocha and knowing that someone who worked on that game was singing a song in my favorite anime. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that is really cool. I love that.
And then I had one other cool fun fact here. Goodbye Love, which is another song with vocals in the series. And this blew me away when I found this out because I was kind of shocked. I didn't know she could sing, but that song is done by Sana's Japanese voice actress, Shizui Oda.
Oh,
And I thought that was
wow.
really neat and honestly really appropriate because that song plays during the whole situation at the beginning of the series between her and Ray. I thought that was really neat because it kind of adds that whole like giving like it's almost like she's singing that song from her perspective and having the voice actress do that just adds to the gravity of the situation.
You're so right. But you want to know something I just noticed just now on the back of the volume one case?
What?
Track 18, Goodbye Love, colon, and then in kanji, Kurata Sana. It's
Oh,
it's, it's supposed to be Sana singing it. Um,
that's really cool. Yeah.
yeah, I just noticed that. I was like, because I don't know about you, but sometimes with like looking at like reading lots of Japanese text, I go a little cross-eyed and I don't like read it. I just go, that's kanji. I can't read that. And I kind of move on and ignore it.
Yeah.
And I just now looked and was like, oh, I do know how to read all of those. And those are all of the characters that spell Sana's name. So There
Nice.
you go. So there we go. That is really cool. So yes, Shizue Oda, and it's like a almost like a character song then.
hmm
I love
Yeah, I thought that
that.
was really neat. One other thing I'd like to mention, actually, there's two things. One's not super exciting, but I'd just like to shout it out anyway in case, somebody's a fan of this band. But when I was doing my deep dive into research for, like who composed some of the music of the show and the singers, I found out, which is really odd, um, that a member of the band Air Supply, which they're a soft rock band from the 70s, composed Goodbye Love and Love Me Deeper partially.
Huh.
Joey Carbone, his name is on the credits for both of those songs. And I thought
Yeah.
that was really interesting. I couldn't really find any more information about that, but I just want to throw that out there. I found it in multiple places online, so I'm assuming, okay, this must be legit. This must
Yeah.
be real information. So, but the last thing I wanted to share in regards to the music with vocals in the background of Kodocha is the lyrics of Vitamin Love was actually written by Akitaro Daichi.
The director. That is really interesting. I sorry, the Joey Carbone thing reminded me that his name is on page 12 of the soundtrack booklet for volume 1.
Mhm.
And now I kind of want to go through and try to translate this because I'm kind of curious because page 12 of the soundtrack booklet, it's Joey Carbone, there's a picture of Babbitt, and it also reads Joseph Williams, Alyssa Milano, Bill Champlin, and Edward Furlong. Several like Alyssa Milano and Edward Furlong are both actors in the US. And then beneath that also is Dennis Belfield, and it says Chaka Khan. Also mentioned says Japan tour ni Joey Carbone, Doobie Brothers. So I want to figure out what this page reads.
Yeah, I'd love to know all the connections there because I
Yeah.
came across Alyssa Milano myself when I was
Hmm.
researching the music, and I was like, what does she have to do with this?
Yeah. All right, time to dig into the booklet and translating. We'll do that.
All right,
Oof.
so the
Okay, anyways, focusing.
instrumentals.
Instrumentals. Oh man.
Great.
Do you want to do like your top 5?
Oh yeah. I'm just so excited.
Me too. Get into it, girly.
So I actually made a rough list of I actually did my favorites by the soundtracks.
Mm.
So if you want me to, I can just do a general top five.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. I that's what I did because I wasn't sure how else I was gonna rein myself in, frankly.
yeah, there's a lot of music to talk about.
There is. Oh
Okay,
man.
so probably my number five would be probably the track on Monday after. I like the sound of that song. I don't think
Hmm.
it plays too often in the show. The
Hmm.
main scene I can remember with that is early on in the series. I think it's when Misako is sitting down with Sana and she's kind of telling her, like, oh, I'm about to publish my book.
Hmm.
And it plays during more serious moments usually.
Hmm.
Um,
It's on
it's
my
kind
top
of
5 too. Yeah.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just love how low key and chill it is.
Yes, I completely agree. When I have like playlists of Kodocha soundtrack songs that I kind of listen to, and I tend to put that one at the front or at the beginning because I feel like it's such a nice like way to kind of ease in. Like if I'm like working or need to focus and want that on in the background, it's a lovely song.
Oh, definitely. What's your number five?
My number 5, oof, probably Sepia Wind from the third volume of the soundtrack, which is played typically in season 2, kind of sadder moments. But I just think it's a really beautiful song.
Yeah, I like that. It that's another one of those that has some of the uh, motifs from a lot of the Fuka music. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess would be considered like her theme song. That do do
Hmm.
do 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 do.
Hmm.
Like
Do do
I
do
really like
do.
the mood of that
Yeah.
song.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like it's a little melancholy, but it's still I think I like the instruments that they use. But yeah, it's got a tinge of hope in there, I guess. I really like it. How about you? What's your
Oh yeah, number four.
Mhm.
My number four, and this might be odd to some people, and honestly, it's a track that I think I only heard it get utilized once or twice in the series and in the New York arc of all
Mhm.
places. But I really love the track So I Will Crying.
Mm.
That is a lovely song. It's so
Mhm.
beautiful. I really like the piano in it. And I
Mhm.
wish they would have used that in the more serious moments, like the canon moments in the series, because I feel like it's honestly, whenever I hear that song, I always associate it with Nazumi. I feel like it's
Mhm.
a good song for him because I just feel like it's just simple piano, but it has this vibe of like, because it starts off slow and it's really nice to listen to, but as it goes along, it gets a little more frantic. Like the
Mhm.
piano in the background, it's like da 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 da. And I almost feel like that's a good it makes me think of Naozumi because it makes me think of how like his feelings for Sana are very pure and genuine, and it's very subtle. Like, I mean, he's not subtle all the time, but
Mhm.
his feelings are very like he tries to kind of hold himself back sometimes throughout the series. He's like, I know that Sana's heart is with Akito, and I need to respect that, but also there's a feeling of him like wanting to keep trying with her. And I feel like that
Mhm.
song really conveys that mood really well with him, which is why I like to think of that song as his theme song.
Yeah, I love that. I think you've really hit the nail on the head with that particular song. And I do really like that song also. There's just not a lot of misses in the instrumentals on Kodocha.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first watched the series, the music didn't really grab me, and
Hmm.
it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I really like the soundtrack to this, but it's definitely grown on me a lot over the last few years. Like I've
Hmm.
noticed little subtleties about it that have kind of added a new layer of the anime for me. And in preparation for this episode, I listened to the songs again, really listened to them and tried to see where the influence for the styles came from, and it gave me another level of appreciation for it.
Definitely something that I appreciate about your perspective because I very much, I think I have a more like passive listening style in a way where I'm just sort of, yeah, I just vibe, but I enjoy myself. But I will say, like, I download I mean, I have a lot of anime soundtracks kind of in my collection, but Kadocha is one of those. All of the volumes I feel like they have a lot of re-listen value, and they're not super distracting, if that makes sense. Like they're
Yeah,
good, like they add to the scenes that they're in. I can listen to them while I'm working or while I'm doing anything and kind of absorb their musical energy without being like completely derailed, if that makes sense. Which I don't
mhm.
think, because like even, okay, like another example, I do love the Fruits Basket 2019 soundtrack, for instance. That is a very, very good soundtrack. But there's a lot of like songs in it that are kind of like they're punchy, but in a way that like will take me out of whatever I'm doing. Whereas I feel like
Yeah.
Kadocha, I think, does a really good job complementing the scenes. So
Hmm. Yeah, I
that's just
agree.
me. My number four was just on Monday afternoon, so nothing special to report there. We've already talked about it. It's a great song.
Did you want to go ahead and talk about your number three?
I guess, yeah, I think so. I think number three is probably going to be Hayama and Sana from Volume One. Um, I just, I think it does a really good job of kind of like marrying the vibes, if that makes sense, between the two characters.
Oh yeah.
And, it also kind of underscores a lot of really lovely moments from the first season. So it's just someone that I really associate with them and really love. So,
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's one of my favorites too. Um,
uh,
I would say my number three, yeah, I'd probably go with Sepia Win for that. But we already
okay.
talked about that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's probably my favorite version of the Fuka music motif.
It's a good one. What's your number two?
My number two would actually be Harmony of Water. I
Ooh,
love the
yeah.
vibe of that song. It's
That is,
so
mm,
it's 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 haunting. I like how haunting it is. It fits
mm-hmm.
what the movie's about,
Yeah,
Mansion of
yeah.
Water. And I just like how it sounds so different from everything else on the soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like it's got like, it's like I said, it's got that haunting quality about it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
particularly romantic or sad, but the mood behind it is just like mystery and
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen next. It's very suspenseful. Um, and like I said, it stands out to me instrumentally from the rest of the songs. I feel like it has instruments in it that we've never really heard in the other songs on the soundtracks.
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely true. It definitely stands out kind of among songs. And it because that arc in particular, the Mansion of Water arc, is so it's not a departure necessarily from the series, but it is very unique. You know, being on a film set, kind of being farther away from the rest of the cast. It's a different kind of zaniness. So it is I feel like the music from that part of the series is very distinctive as well because it kind of matches that the new feeling that you get from that particular arc.
Hmm. Yeah, and it also, I feel like it does a really good job, it conveying that change, like you said. But it
Hmm.
also has a bit of a more, like, the music previously is more lighthearted and kind of upbeat, while this song kind of conveys the more mature and quote unquote adult feeling that the
Mm.
show is
Hmm.
going into, which, of course, that's elaborated on in the manga with,
Hmm.
growing up and maturing.
Buying your first bra.
Yep.
Um,
I watched that episode today, actually.
aw, love it. That's a good one. Yeah, I think my number two is probably Kenama de Fuka, Fuka's theme.
All
It
right.
just, I know I got two Fuka themes in my top five, and I'm gonna get flack for it. Who cares? For a character that is so, I think, like divisive. Generally, people have very complicated feelings around her. They gave her some of the best songs. I just love it because it's so different yet complementary to like Sana's themes, for instance. Like it's more upbeat and it's still got that like energy, but it's different from like the Sana Samba, for instance.
Yeah, the
So,
Fuka music, especially that song, it's very
mhm,
in your face, which I feel like
yeah, which she kind
conveys
of
her
is.
character. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's definitely a lot more blunt and
Hmm.
not as dense as Sana. Like she's
No.
gonna tell it like it is, while Sana has those moments where she's like, I don't know if I'm gonna say that because that's
Yeah.
mean. While Fuka doesn't really care if she's being mean or not.
Yeah, yeah. She's I don't also bless Fuka. I think she just doesn't have like the same filter, if that makes sense. And I do also think that the song is kind of representative of how like Fuka will like kind of go in guns blazing, and then when she finds out more information, she's like, "Oh, okay, that's fine then."
Yeah.
And we'll kind of like back off, and I think that you get some of that in the song as well.
Hmm.
So that's my number two.
One thing I actually wanted to add before I go to my number one,
Mm-hmm.
is because I actually had some notes about like the different instruments and moods of like the general character themes. And Fuka was one of the characters that I took note about. when it came to her theme music because most of the characters that have like they have sounds that are associated with them or musical styles. Sana, Akito, and Fuka are the main three I've noticed in the anime. And with Fuka, I noticed that in the song Fuka and Anxiety in particular.
Hmm.
Now I was trying to look more deeply into that song in particular. And I guess it uses the same melody as the one we were just talking about. Can't think of the name.
Of Kanama Fuka or
That's yeah, I
yeah.
couldn't think of I was like it's a K word, I can't remember.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Hmm.
it uses the same melody, but it takes on a minor tone, which
Hmm.
I think it's interesting because it really shows kind of how Fuka has it shows the depth to her character because I feel like that's something a lot of people miss with Fuka is they
Hmm.
just kind of write her off as like this rival character, but she's very nuanced in her own way. And I feel like the music reflects that, especially between these two songs in particular. Now, while I was studying it, I noticed that they were both in the key of C.
Hmm.
But in Fuka and Anxiety, I feel like this song in particular kind of represents how yeah, she's always gung ho and she's gonna go in and she's gonna kick some butt, but she's also got kind of this undertone of sadness to her because of what she's going through with Takaishi. And I've noticed that that song plays in those particular moments where she's being very contemplative about that.
Yeah, that's a good observation. And I love what you mentioned about like the keys and stuff too, and the minor tones. See, this is why I was excited to have this conversation with you. These are not things that I pick up on. I love it.
Um, yeah, I've been so excited about this all week, honestly.
Eee.
Like I said, like doing the deep dive into this stuff, it's like like I said, it gave me a new level of appreciation. But
Ugh.
anyways, my number one would have to be Harmony of Sana and Hayama. That song is
Ooh.
just, it's everything. It's literally like just Kodocha if it was a song to me. Like if it
Mm-hmm.
was an instrumental song, that's what the series would sound like. I love the combination of Sana's motif and Akito. You have, that whistling that is
Mm-hmm.
associated with his music. And then, of course, you have the slower Sana, da 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 da,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of melody there. And I
Mm-hmm.
like how they blend it together. And it really the feeling of that song really encapsulates what that series is about, I think.
Oh, I love that. That's a really, really good pick for number one. And oh man, I that was definitely on my list as well, my short list as I was trying to pick my top five. It's so hard.
It really is, though.
Oh my God. Like, yeah, might need to do honorable mentions after this. Just because
Yeah, same.
ooh, so good. I think mine's a bit of a basic choice, but my number one is Don't Cry for Me.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, that's a good one.
Don't Cry for Me, just because, like, I mean, that is kind of that initial theme that becomes like Always Be With You and other things in subsequent seasons, but like it's to me that's a song that like because it is in so many of those important Kadocha moments and particularly in the first season it just feels it's the one I associate I think the most heavily with like the show if that makes sense like
Yeah,
and I just really love Don't Cry for Me.
yeah, that's a good one too. Um, yeah. I wanted to kind of elaborate a bit on some of the things that I picked up on
Mm.
when it came to the idea of the moods behind the music and
Hmm.
the styles that they chose. So we talked a little bit about Fuka, how she has a lot of music that is associated with her. Um, Sana and Nikita both have this too in the soundtrack, which I find interesting that Nazumi doesn't really have that spotlight in the
Hmm.
soundtracks the way that Fuka does.
Hmm.
which is why I kind of have the headcanon that his theme song is So I Will Crying.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but something I looked into a little bit with Sana's music. So I thought the style of music that they chose for both Sana and Akito's character was very interesting. But then again, at the time, you think about the 90s, like there was a
Hmm.
lot of music, at least in the Western world, that was very influenced by like reggae or South America. There's a
Mm.
lot of rock music like that. Like one great example would be the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like a lot of their music
Hmm.
is very heavily reggae inspired, or it's just a straight up fusion between reggae and rock. But I thought it was very interesting that the background music, Docha, decided to go with this style, but I feel like it actually makes a lot of sense if you really break it down.
Hmm.
So with Sana's music, that one's definitely got the more South American style of music. So it's
Hmm.
basically a lot of her music is a samba, basically. So when you think about samba music, what comes to my mind is very lively, fast-paced music with a lot of optimism. It just feels like happy music. It makes
Hmm.
you want to get up and dance. And I feel like that really captures Sana's character. Like she's always very positive and she's always ready to get up and do something about her life, or she's ready to get up and do an acting gig. And also something interesting that I read about samba music in general, um, is that there's usually in the songs there's no formal structure, which I thought that was interesting because that kind of lends itself into Sana's character as well. Like she can be a little all over the place sometimes.
Hmm.
she's she's not she's a little structured. Ray makes sure that she's always getting to her rehearsal things on time, but she's always, she she acts like she's just like if I had to be a psychologist and give her a diagnosis, she definitely might have ADHD.
Hmm.
She's always here and there, and she can be a little chaotic sometimes. So
Hmm.
I thought that was a genius choice for the music there. But with Aikido, we kind of get a style that's similar. But his music is reggae. So his theme song, which is featured on the first soundtrack, is called Rasta Hayama. So
Hmm.
Rasta would be like a reference to Rastafarian, which is a religion that originated in remember
Jamaica.
Jamaica. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, thank you so much. Reggae music is often associated with this religion, and when you think of reggae, like Bob Marley, he's like the godfather of reggae. And so with reggae, that music is a lot more low key. It's a lot more straightforward. So I feel like it's a genius move that they used that for Keto's character because he's very subtle. He can be pretty, I guess, laid back most of the time when he's not going through something that's tumultuous.
Hmm.
But I feel like that was really interesting how they went with some really unconventional choices for the background music, but it works.
Hmm.
And looking into the genres and the styles more was just made me even more impressed with that, and it added that level of detail that kind of brings out the characters even more, gives them more life, so to speak, which I thought that was really cool, because I feel like when I first watched the series with Akito in particular, like he can sometimes come across as like, okay, he's a little scary. We don't really know what he's capable of doing. He's so quiet. He's a bit sinister. He can have this
Hmm.
sinister air about him early on in the series.
Hmm.
But as we go through and we get to know him, and I actually thought of this while I was doing my rewatch today, like he can be kind of a goofball. Like
Oh yeah.
he's just like really chill, and like he just kind of wants to do his own thing, and he doesn't really seem to take things too seriously sometimes. And
Hmm.
like I said, I thought that was a really cool choice of music, the reggae style, for
Hmm.
his character, because it shows that, he may be threatening at first, but he's deep down, he's just kind of a softie who just wants to chill and be happy deep down. So, but yeah, I'm sorry, I ramble. Yeah,
Um,
I know that was like super long-winded, so I'm so sorry
no,
about
I
that.
loved every minute of it. Yeah, no, because like I like the analysis of the styles as well, because again, like these are things that like I notice in the sense that like, they're kind of identified in the song titles in some ways, Sana Samba, Rasta Hayama, the Kodocha Mambos, etc. So it's nice to get an additional perspective on like some of the background there. I think you did a lovely job explaining that for folks. Something that I really love from the soundtrack, and I know I have a lot of attitude about this arc and I stand by it, but the New York music is so good.
The New
Like,
York music is heavily, heavily underrated.
oh
Yeah, it's
yeah, I love how they take the themes, like the kind of instrumental themes that we already know and love, and kind of like New Yorkified them. Because I love how it feels like a lot of those older, like kind of like 50s or 60s movies that are kind of like set in New York.
mhm.
It almost feels like you can have one of those, like kind of like you playing like the New York, like one of the New York medleys in the background, and you can almost hear like, the time is now 1964. We're doing this, and there's 1 million people who live in the city of dreams kind of energy
Oh
to it
yeah,
that I think is very
absolutely.
like American, but like it kind of feels like that sort of old style of filmmaking that I also really love.
Hmm.
Um, so it's and since we were there for like what, 18 episodes,
Oh
maybe it is
yeah.
nice that they wrote us some new music to listen to while we were there.
Yeah, and like I said, like the New York music, probably the best part of that arc, honestly. Like I can't think
Hmm.
of anything else. Like I don't hate it as much as I used to. It used to
Hmm.
bother me so much, but I've come around to it a lot. But the music definitely makes up for what would otherwise be really just really slow pacing and an
Hmm.
annoying arc to get through in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And there's so much like reused. I don't know. No, I feel like we are stumbling into that could be its own video territory. Um, yeah, so I'm just gonna like let that one go. But I just had to throw that in there while we were talking about the instrumentals from the series. Just it slaps.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I don't have anything as like smart to add, if that makes sense. I like the music from the series a lot. I think it's so unique. It's so different from basically anything else I've ever watched. And I think it has a lot of re-listen value. And it tugs at my heartstrings. And I think the other thing too I'd add is that sometimes when I'm reading the manga, I will like hear different themes in my head even. So I think it has had a strong impact on the story, and how I consume it in any kind of medium.
I do that too. Whenever I'm reading the manga now.
I love that. You get to
We
the
should.
end of a
So I had a few closing notes, I guess, unless you had
yeah.
something else you wanted to bring up.
I don't think so. Um, I'm really happy that we finally sat down and did this episode. This is a good topic that we've wanted to do for a while, and I'm happy we made the time for it this week.
Same here. And I'm just, yeah, like I said, music's a big part of my life in general. So to be able to sit
Hmm.
down and find interesting little nuggets of information and analyze the music was just a joy for me. But yeah, I had a couple more things I wanted to just like briefly mention before we wrap up today. So we talked a little bit about the Kadocha OVA before we started today. And I neither of us have gone through and really analyzed the music there, but I would like to mention that the ending theme for the OVA was actually written by the mangaka of Kodocha, Miho Bana. And that song is actually sung by the OVA Sana's voice actress, Chiza Yokoyama, which is she's known for Sakura Wars. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Hmm.
One other thing I'd like to mention too, is that the Kodocha laser discs. Now there's two Kodocha laser disc sets. There's one for season one and season two. Those actually come with CDs as well.
Hmm.
And the season one CD is just a collection of all of Sana's raps from the series. I don't know if there's any season two raps. I think it's all just season one.
Hmm.
And then the season two Laserdisc, which unfortunately I was really upset about this. I'm gonna vent for a second, okay? But I had gotten a deal on Laserdisc Series 1, right? I got
Hmm.
it for like I think a little under 100, which is really good for that because it's
Hmm.
always really expensive. And
Hmm.
then about a month later, season one and season two together pop up for I think it was like 150. And I'm like,
Ah,
oh my gosh, of course.
naturally. Yeah.
But anyways, season two's CD has actually been something that I've really been interested in for a while, and I'd really like to get my hands on it, but I just cannot justify spending that money on getting something I already have and then getting that one because I can't seem to find season two's Laserdisc set on its own.
Hmm.
But this CD features a radio show with Sana and Babbitt. And
Ah.
I noticed that I actually found it on the Japanese video sharing site, Nico Nico, I think it's called. Um,
Hmm.
I found an alternate version of the OVA ending song on there, which is apparently from that CD. So I'd
Oh.
really be interested in hearing that CD, like what its contents are, although I probably won't be able to understand it since I don't really know. I know bits and pieces of things because I've been watching anime so long, but I wouldn't understand what they're
Mhm.
saying.
Ah, that is really interesting because I have never once like clicked on a listing for one of the laser discs. I was just like, I have no way to play that. Moving on. But I do love the artwork on the cover. So I didn't know that they came with CDs or what the content on them was. So, thank you for that little speck of knowledge. That's fantastic. That's good to know.
Yeah, I really, really hope to get my hands because I really am interested in that little radio show. I just wonder if
Yeah.
maybe there's a booklet that like I could like take pictures of. It's like a transcript of it, and like we can figure out
Mm,
what they're saying, Like I think that'd be
yeah.
something really nice for the community too.
That would be really cool. I mean, if you get a hold of it ever at one point and want to like rip it and send it my way, I could take a stab at it. But that's the thing is anytime I do, because I've been trying to like challenge myself. And so whenever I post a clip from Kodocha on Daily Kodocha, I've been trying to subtitle it myself with my own translation. I have to slow it down by like to like point three of what its actual speed is, and I listen and I re-listen and I listen again, and I'm in my dictionary up to my elbows, and it's so much harder than doing these translation things that are written down. Oh my god! But I'm trying to get better at listening to it, so I would take a stab at it if you ever um, come across it.
Yeah, for sure. And who knows if I'm feeling bold, maybe I'll just get that set because I think it's still available. And I don't know, like it's really been one of those things. Like every day, like if I come across it again and I see it,
Hmm.
I'm tempted. Trust me. But
Oh my gosh, yes,
I just can't justify that amount for something part of it I already have. The
the
struggle.
joys. This truly. Anyway, do we have anything else to add, or is that kind of where we're closing for today?
I didn't have anything else. Did you?
I don't think so. Okay. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast.
19 O'Clock News is hosted by That Kodocha Girl and Mahou Shoujo M.
We love making new friends. Feel free to join us in the Kodocha Discord under Kodocha_media.
19 O'Clock News is not affiliated with any current or previous rights holders to Kodomo no Omocha by Miho Obana.